Hey guys, it's your boy Wolfie. I'm back at it again. I finally got my hands on Tiny Tina's Wonderland. I've been having a blast. Finally got my character to max level and I just finished hitting Chaos 35 and I'm able to clear it pretty easy, just like I was expecting. We got another one of these ridiculous builds that clears entire rooms and can pretty much do everything. And it's good for leveling and it's good for the end game. So let's go right into that build real quick if you know what I'm talking about. So first of all, I decided to play a Spellshot. I gotta turn my controller on, sorry. I play controller. I'm a boomer. So, I went with the Spellweaver. The Spellshot, my bad, not Spellweaver. I don't know why I read Spell. Whatever, let's go past it, I'm old. I went with a Spellshot. I want to take advantage of the fact that they could use 2 spells. It was the new mechanic in the game. We got rid of grenades and I kind of wanted to mess around with it. So I wanted to use as many spells as possible. But I also really enjoyed Polymorph. I don't know why. And this whole like secondary class system made the game so much more fun because I could just swap over to whatever I want, whenever I wanted. And I had a pretty good time. So let's go into this build real quick, okay? Now this is my end game build that's meant for the specific items that I have right now. I'm gonna tell you guys what to take depending on what level are you on, or except let's go into that right now. All right, so first and foremost, I went with the double spells. Obviously, that's my jam. That's what I want to do. Is what it is. Let me point out a trap real quick. This whole spell sniper thing, which is pretty nice when you're leveling, just to get a little bit of extra damage, and it's really nice. But you always want to get magic bullets. Always want to get magic bullets because it turns some of your spell damage into gun damage, which is just increased damage. Not only on top of that, I also end up putting points in the reload speed. Now I really like reload speed because it also builds up stacks when you have a regular reload and not one of the throwaway guns. This will keep your damage going, and especially when you see the build later on. Now, I'm not picking up this talent because I have a specific item, but for you as leveling, you definitely want to have this talent. Makes you more tanky, and for the next point that you're going to see later, you're going to understand why. Now, you always want the fire rate. The fire rate is nutty. It's really strong. It helps you do more damage. While leveling, I highly suggest going to spell cooldown, especially if you're using an action skill, but once you get to max points, you don't really need that anymore. We'll go over that in a second. The max point kind of makes cooldown reduction kind of bad, so don't worry about it. Next, we have the glass cannon build. You are the true glass cannon in this game. You say, screw shields, I just want health to increase my damage. This makes the build very high octane, very risky, very scary, but I love playing it. I can't just play the game boring. I gotta be able to run out there and be able to die. You know what I'm saying? I'll be having fun. So this takes away my shield. Now the reason I'm using this and why I normally you pick this up, but I'm not picking it up, because I have this shield over here that's giving me 100% increased damage and 17% damage reduction while I have no shields. So I'm just walking around shooting people for Jesus. And it's fantastic. I love it. It's great. It's a fun build. Next, you really want to have this point. Why? Because more spell weaving stacks is great, and as you can see, spell weaving, etc. This is fun to pick up if you have a really slow reloading gun, but if you don't, then just don't worry about it. But it's really nice if you have a slow reloading. It's not really useful on bosses too much, but I like it. It's nice to have on a class mod. If you could just get it on a class mod, great. Now you want to put the 5 points on this because this is just more damage. You're always going to be casting spells. You always want to do more damage, and I'm pretty sure it just stacks. Yep, it stacks 1 for each spell, so it's really 20% damage. Fantastic. Again, more damage. We love damage in this house. Just damage like that. I don't need to explain it. Damage. You get it. Damage. You guys get it. I love talents like this. This is just straightforward. You want damage? Pick me. Got it. Now, once you get this, it changes your whole perspective on the class, because now you no longer care about cooldown, because it should always proc instantly refresh your cooldowns every 5 seconds. Now, but you're saying, hey, it's just a chance. It counts per bullet. So if you have a shotgun, it counts per pellet. If you have a machine gun, per pellet, and how fast you shoot it. So more than likely, if you're using machine guns, you're using shotguns, you're using them that hits a lot, it will proc every time. So your spells are basically 5-second cooldowns every time. It's great. Now, when we're gonna go into the Graveborn tree, now this is where you become tanky. We sacrificed our tanky to do more Damahe, and now we're sacrificing nothing to be more tanky. I love sacrificing nothing to get more out of it, right? So we go into this, you just get more damage, obviously. Damage, love damage. We don't need cooldown reduction. We don't need it. Get that extra health. Need some extra health to survive. You don't have a shield. There you go again. This also regens your health. Since your cooldowns are so short, and this is always proccing, you're always healing. So this makes you go from squishy to really tanky. You are now able to just sit in the middle of groups and tank damage as long as you're popping your abilities. And depending on how you duck and weave and avoid certain damage and everything like, you should be constantly bringing yourself back up to HP. It's a nice little fun play style. Kind of feels like a blood DK from WoW. It's really fun. Next points you want to put into this, you want to get this 1 point. The little 1 points are usually really good to get. And obviously you don't need this. We're not doing dark damage unless you have a build that's doing dark damage. Don't need this, not doing dark damage either. I'm gonna tell you which ones you want to do later, but you can do dark damage if you want to. Now you pick up Hydras because it's just the best thing here to get. It's just extra damage that's just there. It's kind of nice. They proc, they hit decently hard. It's just extra DPS. It's more than anything else you can pick up, so good. And then your last 3 points you want to put into Ascension, because this actually works with your Spellshot build. It is fantastic. Really enjoy it. Really like it. It's a really solid kill skill to have, especially since they're on bosses. There usually is a couple enemies, and you can stack this a lot, so it'll make you really hard to kill, and it'll actually give you a lot of damage. Remember, your healing is percentage based, not a flat number based, so this actually gives you a decent amount. That's 60 extra health and 60% extra damage. It's a really solid skill to have. Don't forget that you also have this, which is turning part of that spell damage into gun damage. So now this skill gives you health, gun damage, and spell damage all on the same talent. It's really good. This is why I think this is probably the best combination you can get with a spell shot. But to be fair, I haven't really experimented with a lot yet. I just started and I don't really look at guides. I'm kind of just finding items and working builds around that. Now, the great thing about this build is you can do it while leveling, you can do it while progressing, and it doesn't matter. This build is good, slap on good. You just have to change one talent point and you pick up that shield regen if you want to use a different spec that isn't the Graveborn, or if you're leveling and you don't have my shield, or you just don't have my shield and you're max level. Now, items, okay? Now, you want an SMG, you really want an SMG because SMGs usually have the best elemental damage. I love elemental damage. I don't know why, I can't get enough of it. I just like all the dots going over, seeing the numbers. I can't even read them, just people dying for reasons I don't even know. Love them. For this build, specifically for what I have, you don't need these items. Just work with what's good. I personally am using this gun because it has a 4-way spread, and I'm using a Buffmeister. The Buffmeister makes it so every single pellet does an extra 185 cold damage. Now, when your gun is shooting this fast and you reload it that fast, and then it turns into a turret that's flying around hitting that fast. By the way, your floating guns have your stats, so it's fantastic. So this is just great. Again, you don't need this. You can use multiple spells. The spells are all over the place. I just happen to be using frost damage. Personally, I think frost damage and shock damage is the best, just because from what I've found, they've had the best interaction with everything. And I happen to find a Tidebreaker, and a Tidebreaker just changed my entire build around. I was using shock damage earlier, and I was even using this assault rifle as one of my main damage weapons because it just hits the whole room and there's shock damage everywhere. But I ended up finding this beautiful SMG. These are great. These little throwaway weapons, fantastic, especially for this build. amazing. You are constantly putting out damage and constantly throwing out stuff. But even if you don't have this, it's still good. The shock weapons do chain lightning, so they hit everything in the room. So as long as you stack up shock damage, it will kill everything in the room while you attack one target. It's really good. Mind you, these weapons aren't the best versus bosses. So when you are building these kind of items, after you find a nice little elemental weapon, you find a nice good like melee weapon, you find a nice side weapon just in case that they're immune to your main element, you just need some extra damage, right? Get boss killers. This is the best boss killer shotgun I've run into so far. You can probably find different ones. I haven't seen all of them, but this one is monstrous. It takes out structures. It defeats really heavy HP bosses because there's so many bullets that come down. And like I said before, we're extremely in elements. Now, this doesn't have an element on it, but I have the Buffmeister. This makes every pellet that's falling out of the sky do frost damage. It's great. It's awesome. It works really well, especially for the Spellshot. Mind you, remember the passive that we had, the talent. This has 100% uptime for every weapon that you use. 100% uptime. Amazing. And it's only because of the Spellshot build. And then I have this one. I don't know where this thing came from, but this thing destroys bosses. If you find this item, do not sell it. It reminds me of that one sniper machine gun from Borderlands 3 that we use on all the bosses. This gun is disgusting. If you're having a hard time killing bosses, get this gun. Now, don't forget these little enchanted like items on them. You always want to get on spell cast. Get whatever the best one you can. Don't worry too much if it's not the most optimal. The ones that I have just happen to be there. I've gone through all of them. The only thing I will say, increased damage dealt is the best one because its gun damage element is everything. It's every damage you do, even if you swap to another element. Increased damage done is the best. Outside of that, it's probably the Spellshot one that gives you gun damage and fire rate. And then after that, it's probably elemental damage of whichever one you're doing. And then the overall, every element is probably the best overall for this kind of build if you're focusing on a lot of spell damage. This has been great for me. I just went all frost, all damage, etc. None of this stuff is necessary. All of this stuff is just you change your build and you change your items based on the items you get. None of this stuff none of this build means you have to go frost. None of this build means you have to go shock. None of this build means you have to go fire. The only thing that will change your build as you go on is you will pick this up and you will want to focus on frost and lightning, and that's about it. Everything else doesn't matter. If you find a fire Buffmeister, use it. If you find a shock Buffmeister, use it. They're all good. And believe it or not, piling on top of an already frost weapon works really well because then you could just get a necklace that also increases frost damage. And then if you get frost damage on your weapon, you could just, you know what I mean? It works until you run into something that's immune to frost, and then you just sit there like, damn. But that's why you got this gun right here that just does physical damage, and this gun that, does a billion damage anyway, and you have your shock weapon just in case. So you have everything to cover all the bases. I like this build. You can use it for everything. Slap that dude on any mechanic, any game, any boss, and you should be good. Hopefully this helps. Let me know if this helped you guys out. If you guys need some any tips on guns or whatever, let me know. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and please drop a follow. I'm gonna leave some gameplay at the end so you can see how the build actually plays and judge it on yourself. I don't have the best gear, but I'm able to do 35 pretty easily. Sometimes I get stuck on a couple of enemies and I might have to fight a boss for a little while until I get better gear, but I can clear 35. Damn, I got real southern real quick. I gotta go back to New York. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Deuces.
got all the magic I need.
Why me no die?
How's that for you, scumbag?
This world's no place for weak. Death didn't like the look of me.